Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Linda Pham, and she comes to us with a background in HR and also previously in nutrition. So we'll get into a little bit of her backstory. But Linda, what are you up to now? And then we'll get into kind of the backstory. So what are you up to these days?
Yeah. Well, first off, just want to say thanks for having me as a guest on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here. Right now, I guess on my day-to-day at work, I'm working as a talent specialist for Xero, which is a SaaS company. Being in tech is quite exciting. Didn't think I'd find myself here. Aside from that, I've got a lot of projects along the way. I don't know. I think I'm balancing too much on my hands, but yeah, wanting to start I guess because of COVID, everyone started reevaluating their life and it's like, what is it that I want to do? So yeah, I want to start a coffee business with my best friend, working on some Asian Canadian experiences, specifically for Vietnamese women. That's kind of coming up this month. Some side freelancing projects as well. So yeah, a lot on the go.
Sounds good. So before we dive into kind of all those different things that you're doing, when we go back in time and ask, like, what was Linda like as a kid? So growing up, any early fond memories? What were you like growing up?
Oh my God, it's so funny because I think if you were to ask me if I was going to be in HR doing something with people, you would be so surprised because I was really quiet, really shy, very to myself. Yeah, super, super introverted. Like I had a lot of interests. So I was into music, I was into sports. I wanted to be the first female in the NHL, but I didn't even learn how to, I didn't learn how to skate until I was 14. So that dream just out the window, right? So yeah, as a kid, I think I had a lot of interest. I was one of those that you would do things and be really good and pick it up really quickly. So academically, I was really good at school. But I think when it had to come to like hard work, it's like, I got this good. I don't want to kind of go beyond that. So I would always say like I'm a jack of all trades, but master of none.
It sounds good. So growing up, it seems like you started off as kind of a shy, introverted kid, and now as we interact, I don't see you as that type of person. So kind of what was that progression along the way? You're into, I guess, some sports, some music, and stuff like that in kind of elementary school. And then did you start kind of breaking out of your shell in high school or somewhere later in elementary or even later in university? What was that journey like?
Oh my God, probably later in university. And I think it was because in high school I was so, like, I guess tied to one group of friends. And once I left that environment, going to university, I was like, this is my chance to reinvent myself, be someone that I've always wanted to be, and try the new things that I never got to do. So, I wanted to try hip hop and dance and didn't have that opportunity there. And like, I guess when you go to university, you're like, oh, there's all these classes that I could pay for. And I was like, yeah, OSAT money, I can start paying for these things. So yeah, branching out to meet different people that I just wouldn't have met in the natural environment that I would in traditional school. And yeah, so I started meeting more people that way. And I also realized early in life, my parents would tell me, just do well in school. And when you do well, like you're going to have a job after that. And I'm like, I don't think that's how the world works anymore. Because at this point, university degrees are almost like the entry level. It's like the base ground that you would assume. And so I was like, I need to do something to differentiate myself. And I was really drawn to Asian student groups just because I identify as Chinese, Vietnamese, and starting involved a lot with that. And then there's a lot of leadership opportunities. So it was a really good way for me to start honing on different skill sets that I had before. Like my cousin was a graphic designer. I wanted to do graphic design at one point. Yeah, I had a lot of different ambitions, but yeah, so then I started doing a lot more leadership stuff. So I started with marketing, and then because of that environment, they really made me feel welcomed, and I wanted to continue that legacy of like, this is what our student group is doing. So then I came on to be president, and that's when you start networking more and having more social events. And I think that's where it really started flourishing.
Sounds good. So before we kind of deep dive into some of those things, like can we go back and figure out like, how was that transition into university? Because I know we were just talking before about how you started in nutrition, which doesn't scream marketing or HR or anything like that. So what was the high school to university decision points like?
Yeah, so I know I talked about like being really interested in sports and music, and at that time I decided to go to an arts high school, and my parents were really supportive, interestingly. Like they wanted me to be happy and do what made us happy. And then first, like grade 9 in, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be a musician, because there were some kids who were just playing since they were 4 years old. And I was like, I'm a bit of a late bloomer, and I just didn't want to be a starving artist because I didn't think it was a sustainable career. And later on, I realized that I value stability. Like that to me, I want to be secure financially, and music was just not going to get me there.
Right.
So being in an art school, there wasn't very many options in terms of what electives you could take. And my parents had only aligned 3 career paths for you. It's like be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an accountant. Like I don't even think my mom knew what an engineer was. So those are like the only 3 avenues. And yeah, Asian parents. Out of the 3, I was like, oh, I wouldn't be a lawyer because I'm really kind and really nice. If anything, I'm gonna agree with the other side. So I was like, okay, let's scrap that idea. I always thought business meant entrepreneurship, and I just didn't like that idea as well. I think I should have explored, knowing that it's that what you assume is not what it is.
Right.
And so the other one was like doctor, and everyone in high school has to take your standard like science, math, and I almost wanted to perpetuate that Asian stereotype. Like, yeah, I could do well in these subjects. So I didn't want to be a doctor because I was like, I don't like blood. I don't want to deal with all this. But where else can I explore in terms of science, health care field? I thought of being an optometrist, but I didn't enjoy physics. I liked chemistry, so I was like, okay, what can I do with chemistry? Be a pharmacist. So I was lucky enough to do a co-op at my other high school when I did a victory lab, and then I discovered I didn't like it. So then it kind of drawn back to this nutrition course, and everyone took nutrition because you got to eat the food in the course. You're like, yeah, we get to make food. And then that was at like the grade 10 level, and then at the grade 12 you can take a nutrition science class, and you also got to cook. But I actually enjoyed the science part. I was like, whoa, I love how the fats, this is how trans fats are made, and a lot of people were bored by that. So because of that, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to explore nutrition. And that's how I kind of hopped into university there.
Sounds good. So I heard a lot of parental influences, the typical doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer.
Sure.
The engineer was scrapped, too agreeable to be a lawyer. Accounting was entrepreneurship, so that, and then doctor, not exactly. So let's pick the nutrition side of it, just because you like being able to eat and the sciencey bit of that. So were there other influences like older siblings, cousins, or people around you that kind of said, yeah, that's the right path? Or is it really more the exploration that allowed you to find this path?
It's funny because I actually had like I mentioned, the cousin who was in, she was a graphic designer, and I always wanted to do what she did. But I think at that point I was like, I also want to create an identity for myself and not do everything she does. So I did the graphic design skills, and I realized that it takes a high amount of creativity, and sometimes like when you have writer's block or whatever that is, it's frustrating and you can't get past it. And I just found it a lot more difficult for me, but for her it came a lot easier. So it was also knowing like where my strengths lied. And after that, I was like, you know what, I do like this, I think I'm good at it, I'm gonna go in and explore it. So that's where I decided to go into that route. I think I wish I had more mentors or influence around me to know whether I wanted to pursue that path, or talk to them about, what they did on their day-to-day, because I didn't have a lot of that growing up.
Right. I always find it so surprising how many students, young people go into a profession, and yet they've never met a single person doing what they want to be doing. So maybe a little bit more of that would be good. So so talk to us about that journey. So you decided to pick nutrition. How did you pick the school, and what was the program like? Was it exactly as you hoped and wanted, or was it something a little bit different?
Yeah, so because I was one of those I guess, overachieving Asian kids in school, but also like, oh, I don't have to study for a test. Like, I'll just learn and I'll do well. That mentality does not work in university. There's so much self-study pace, and when you're in high school, like everything's sort of outlined for you, and then there's so much discipline you need to know prior to university. So I wish I had that preparation as well. So yeah, I would go in and I'm like, oh shoot, 6 weeks in and I haven't prepared for the 6 chapters we've had to learn. So didn't do too well my first time around. And I mean, I still enjoyed the course. And it actually was probably at second year university where I realized nutrition may have not been for me, because I took this organic chemistry course, and the the turning point was really when I had failed it the first time. I was like, oh my God, it's the first time I failed something. And I
Right.
didn't know how to deal with that, because I've always done well in my life with it, whether it came to like school and anything I put my head to. So that was really a shock to my ego, I guess. And yeah, so I took the course second time around, try to get all the help and support from friends I met who had taken the course before. And then I was on the route to failing it again, and I ended
Oh
up
no.
failing it twice. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I've done everything I could. And then if you fail a course 3 times, you're kicked out of your program. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
oh my God. Yeah. So I didn't want that to be my reality. And I started reevaluating my life at that point. Like, oh my God, I always thought I wanted to do nutrition. And what if I do get kicked out? And I'm a little bit more risk adverse, and started thinking, was this because I chose this path because my parents wanted me to do this? Is this something else that I should start exploring? And so that's when I started going to my university, talking to career counselors, started talking to my friends. Hey, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think would be something you could see me doing? And then, yeah, so then switching from going to nutrition and HR, I had talked to a cousin of mine who went from, I think, biology to IT. And I was like, that's a drastic switch. I want to know more about that as well, right? And so after talking to him, he was like, when you learn the basics to every course, like they're going to teach you. You don't have to have that background knowledge. And that really solidified, like, hey, I don't have to know. They're going to teach me. And so once I had a friend who really recommended, hey, how about human resources? And I think this is the one thing I shouldn't do, but I always assume when I hear what this career is, I'm like, oh, HR admin. I think I would like admin stuff instead of like finding out what it really is. But I went into it and found that HR isn't just admin work, but there's so many different areas, and I end up enjoying it.
Sounds good. So that process to kind of go to school, so you ended up going from university to college. So that's sometimes a bit of a blow as well for some, especially like high achieving Asian parents, that sort of thing. What was that discussion like?
So when you switch courses, or I guess your program in university, I think I had missed the deadline and I didn't want to take a year off to reevaluate. Also just conscious about like paying back OSAP. So I looked into different programs that would have I think it was a timeline in terms of when they would accept applicants to sign up for the schools. And I looked at Seneca, George Brown, and different schools where they had a co-op program, because at that time, where I was at Ryerson University, didn't have or I guess now it's called Toronto Metropolitan. I think it's a new name, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so they didn't have the co-op program for their HR at the time, and I realized that, work experience is not easy to come by. So that's how I started exploring that, and I had a few friends who were attending Seneca, so it made the transition a bit easier. I was like, okay, I'll make friends there, but I'll also know people in case I don't make friends. So that's sort of why I chose to go to college, because I saw that there was that work, which is strange because I actually chose an optional co-op as opposed to the mandatory. I
All
don't
right.
think George Brown and Humber may have had the mandatory co-op option, but exploring online, it didn't seem like there was a great experience. So I decided to go to Seneca. And it worked out great for me. Like if it wasn't for Seneca, like I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today. So I do a lot of work to go back and help, and just, because I feel like I owe them for helping me get to where I am today.
Sounds good. So you ultimately complete that program at Seneca, but then you also continue on and do more back at Ryerson or Toronto Metropolitan. What was that experience or that decision process like on that one?
So I loved my university experience, and as a pride thing, I think in the back of my mind, I still want to graduate with a undergraduate degree from a known university. And I think my mentality going to Seneca was like, I have this 3 to 5 year plan, and I was really, really driven to come back to Ryerson, just because I think when you go to university, you have more funding, more resources, access to things that you might not get at the college level. And I think college is great for the practical knowledge. Like, it's very hands-on, and you get to know your profs because it's at a smaller level where you get to, just get that support from your professors. But I think at the university level, there's that theory as well that you can learn from things. And so I had it crafted out where when I went to Seneca, like first year you do your business courses, second year, I'm like, I'm gonna get into the co-op program, and then I'm gonna find myself a co-op, and then I'm gonna get this GPA because you need this minimum to get back to Ryerson. So that was sort of what I had planned out, and I knew I thought that getting into the co-op program was the hardest part because when I had applied, they only accept a handful. So I was 24 out of the 60 applicants that got in. And then that's not even the hardest part. The hardest part is trying to find a job, because it's like a full-time job itself, while maintaining your studies, while maintaining my GPA. And at that point, like, I realized I couldn't be picky. There were students who came in with wealth of knowledge and experience, and I was picking criteria like, oh, like, I want to be downtown. I want it to be paid. And then at this rate, I was like, you know what? I don't have enough experience to be picky. Just go apply for everything, see what you get. So it was an unpaid internship, but because it's part of a school credit, like, you get the experience at University Health Networker. And it turned out because, like, I think all the things I've done in the student groups helped me land that opportunity, because when you don't have experience, you're gonna have to show what makes you stand out. So I think I'm going a little bit on a tangent, but that was sort of my plan. Got into the co-op, and then you have to complete like one more term to graduate with your co-op, and then just headed back to Ryerson. So I think for that was more of a theoretical knowledge. And then I also wanted to pursue a minor. So I ended up doing a minor in finance. Okay. I don't know how helpful that was, because I always thought, like, if you can talk numbers, you can talk business. So I just decided to use finance as a supplementary to my HR degree.
Cool. And did the university program have a co-op as well, or that was just pure academics?
Pure academics. They do now, which took them long enough, but I'm glad that they do now.
Yeah, I think most schools are trying to integrate some sort of work integrated learning, if not co-op or internships in that as well. So, okay, so you finish your degree, you have that check box, and that it's done. What was the process like to land the first role after graduating university and after being done school?
It was frustrating. So I think because I went back to school, I didn't want to feel like I was behind my peers or my friends that did graduate around the same time, because the expectation is like, oh, here you are, like, you're going back, you're taking a few steps back in your life, and it's just something that you always do, you compare. But I think applying the jobs, I think I started at the right time, but it was frustrating because you're competing with everyone else who is trying to find their first job. So I'd go through first round phone screens, I'd get ghosted by recruiters, I would just apply and apply and apply, and I didn't want to be like some of my friends who I saw that had graduated and ended up not getting a job in the field that they studied. So I'd see them 2 years just not in, like, working at the bank, or just not what they wanted to pursue, right? So I was hoping that I had enough experience and internships on my belt that I could get my foot in the door. But then I was lucky enough that a recruiter on LinkedIn had reached out to me, saw my profile, and thought, hey, let's have a chat. I was like, oh my God, the one that, like, I didn't apply for, it ended up being the place where I got my job, and it was right after I finished exams. So I was really fortunate. I think I was a little bit luckier in my job search. So I guess the takeaway is have a nice updated LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one where a lot of people undervalue the power of a good profile. And yeah, I mean, it just sits there, and if people can find it and they reach out, why not, right? It's a little bit of investment, and then you get that. So awesome. So you're now starting this job. You get catch a lucky break, and now you're starting. What was their journey like from then until now?
I think that when you're a new grad, you're super excited. You just want to get the ground running. You want to show your best. And I was just there to learn and absorb. And I think at times when you make a mistake, you're like freaking out because you don't know what to expect from your first, like, quote unquote professional job. So I remember making a mistake, and then I saw this email. I was like, oh my God, is this hinting that they're going to replace me? I'm going to get fired. It was like within my first 3 months, but no, I obviously didn't get fired. Yeah, I think I was really lucky because I had a really good mentor, someone who supported me with the role that I was supposed to go into, showing me the ins and outs of the day-to-day. It was also a contract role, so I knew that my time there was limited. And once I was able to learn how the company worked and learn how the function was, I really want to show that I can bring something from my previous experience. And everything that I had done in university actually ended up working out really well. Like, we did a recruitment event, and all my event planning that had come from student groups ended up applying. I was like, hey, I know how to make these name tags through mail merge using Microsoft Word. And like, when you're young and you come out of school, like, people who've been in the workforce don't get to see what's up and coming and new. Like, as a recruiter nowadays, I see on applications, everyone starts with Python, and I'm like, whoa, everyone just learns coding like it's normal. Like, to me, that's crazy, and I'm envious that they get that opportunity. So I think, like, when you're coming in fresh, like, your knowledge is really, really valued, and so you should don't be shy. Like, we like students who are, or not students, we like employees who are curious and aren't afraid to show, like, this is what we can do. And yes, there's direction you can take, but also, like, you're now like a full-fledged adult working employee. Like, we value your opinion.
Sounds good. So it seems like that you were in a supportive environment, and there's probably a bit of that kind of like imposter syndrome, and like kind of whether or not you're supposed to be here. You thought you were going to get fired, but you ended up doing pretty well, and having good a mentor and things like that. And then what was it like to go into your latest role? So did you get headhunted there, or did you apply there? What was the process like for that?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate with my current company because they had given me so much growth opportunities, and wondering what the traditional career path in HR is. You start as a coordinator, and then my goal was to get promoted as a generalist within 3 years, but then it happened in 2 years. I was like, okay, cool. What's next? And when you're a generalist, you get to explore different areas, and it's either you continue to be a generalist or you start to specialize. And I think at that point, I was at this company for 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, and it started feeling really stagnant and trying to figure out what's next for me. And I had a friend who worked at Xero, and she raved about how amazing the culture was and what a great workplace it was. And so there was an opportunity as an HR advisor that came up, and I think at that time I still wanted to pursue the business partner generalist path, just because it builds a lot of variety into my day, and talk to them about the role. And I actually didn't get the role, obviously, because I'm not doing it now, but I enjoyed the experience from the recruiter and how transparent she was with the process. And she came back to me letting me know that there was actually a role in recruitment. And during that time at my previous company, they were pushing me to do a little bit more recruitment. And I just kept hearing feedback like, Linda, you're really good at this. You're a really great brand ambassador for our company. You create great experiences for our employees, for our hiring managers. And a part of me was hesitant because I was like, I don't want to specialize, because if I specialize, I'm going to get stuck. And it wasn't until I started thinking, you know what, why don't I understand what the life is of a recruiter who does it full time, who's on that path. So I started going to my LinkedIn and saw whoever in my network that I knew, started reaching out, talked to them about their experience. And most of the times, most people, if you reach out to them, they're willing to help. Like, what's the worst that they can do? Is either ghost you or say no. And it's not that bad. But if you do, like, it's better that you take your chance than to always just wonder, like, what if I reached out? So I was really fortunate that I had people respond to me, walk me through their experience, and it made me feel like, yeah, this is something I think I can do. I really like the aspect that it's not just recruitment is what you assume it is. Like I mentioned all the other roles, like don't assume this is what the job is, right? And she was telling me, yeah, in recruitment, no, you can do all the stuff with the tech, and like I just love it. And so knowing that there's that variety in the role as well made me think, okay, you know what, this is something I explore. And here I am today doing recruitment, love it, such a great feeling, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Sounds good. So if you were to go back in time and give younger Linda some words of advice, some stuff I wish I knew earlier, I don't know if it's in high school, elementary, university, or whatever time frame, like what is some of the SWIKE that you'd share with yourself?
I think if I were to go back and talk to little Linda, I would tell her
young Linda, it doesn't have to be
young-
Linda, little, right?
maybe like in her child elementary school years, like just try everything,
Okay.
be curious, and find out what you're good at and really stick to that skill set and try to really hone it, because you'll never know like where it'll take you and where it'll be beneficial. And then I think, you know, I think I wish I had more people kind of ask, you know, what is it that you want to do, and really look into yourself and thinking what are different career paths to take. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to keep doing what you used to do. Like I still love music. I'll still play, but for fun. I don't expect myself to be the next like Justin Bieber or something. But you can still like have passions on the side, but not pursue what you want as your day-to-day job as a passion. But in terms of, I guess, starting to explore what is it you want to do for your work, I think skill set is more important than anything, because the job that you might want might not be invented yet, and in the future something will come up. So, but all your experiences will lead to something. So just take risks, go out there, explore life, because you'll never know where it'll take you.
Sounds good. So what I took from that is build some of those foundational skills and explore what those might be, because you don't know what the future is going to be for yourself or for the world, because as you said, some of the jobs that will be around and prominent in 5-10 years probably haven't even been invented yet. So it's giving yourself kind of those foundational ones, and then maybe we'll have you back and do a deeper dive into some of those other things, like dealing with failure, or like the college experience, or choosing your path, or maybe even like that notion of getting stuck in recruiting or another another profession or something like that. But thanks for sharing your SWIKE. Is there any other ones that you'd want to share with Linda, young Linda, high school, university, making that transition from like nutrition to HR, or anything in that realm?
I think it's important to build on social skills, like, because if you are too shy, I guess, and like you need an open environment, but also that step to kind of go and talk to people. Because if you don't go out, then how will you ever learn? And it is, I can understand how difficult it can be for someone who isn't accustomed to that. So I guess different strategies, like even if it is like writing an email or having a friend that is supportive of that, or even where you can see it in your family networks. Like I think humans are social, like you have a support system. Hopefully someone can help you break that ice. And I think also what's important is finding a mentor. Like that's one thing I still want to do is find someone so I know what my next steps could look like, because like I said, I'm very risk adverse, and I'd like to know at least, what my future could potentially look like and what those options are. And I think when someone is younger, they don't know. You just ask them, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I don't know. I just want to try everything. But I think if you kind of outline different pathways, like this is what it could look like, it gives them a general sense of like, oh, there's like a beginning and a sort of an end, and it might not be probably most times it's not even linear, but at least when you're going through the journey trying to figure it out, then you'll at least you took that step to start, right?
For sure. So what I took from that is, going back to that exploration piece, right? If you have 30 things that you want to try, well, start with one and then go to the second and third. And
Exactly.
life is long. There's a lot of time to do stuff. Some of them will lead to dead ends, but some of them, if you can learn from those, then they can be kind of your best help. Like what you said previously about some of the student groups and the event planning, that kind of helped you land other roles and things like that. On the social skills part, yeah, whether you're quiet or shy, people are generally social. They generally want to interact with folks. I know some people who hate doing that altogether. But they have different hangups on that. But generally speaking, it's a learned skill. The more that you do it, the better you get. And the first couple of times, it's a little bit more challenging. Then it gets easier and easier. And then the last part on the mentor part, well, maybe what you should do is just ask other people for guidance and advice. Like, they don't have to officially be like a mentor, right? I tell people, like, you don't have to put a ring on it, that sort of thing. Right? It doesn't have to be completely official. You just said, hey, you're an interesting person and you've done some interesting things. Could I learn a little bit more about it? And yeah, do you call them a mentor after one conversation? Maybe not, but they probably give you some good advice. And then over a period of time, they might do that. So I think that would be great. So thanks so much, Linda, for sharing your story and kind of your journey. What are some of the things that are up and coming for you? Are there anything that we can come up or look out for you to do? You talk about coffee, you talk about some other freelance stuff, and then where could folks reach out to you if they're interested in connecting?
Ooh. Well, I guess the biggest thing that's the most related is I'm trying to build out my brand as a content creator. So I do want to start posting more on YouTube about my experiences, especially as a recruiter and how the job market is right now. The lens of a recruiter is what people want to know during their job search. So how to negotiate your salary, how to prepare for job interviews. So I think that is something you can see from me that's coming up. Best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Name's Linda Pham. Hopefully you can find me. There's a lot of Linda Phams out there, but
we'll put your information in the show notes for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah. Sounds good. So thanks so much, Linda, for joining us in the conversation, and hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
All right. Thanks, Luki.
Take care, Linda. Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.